boy oh boy, have I got news for you. Battlefield 2042's player numbers have dropped to an embarrassing new low. The Refund Battlefield 2042 petition has now surpassed everybody's expectations, and EA have just had an internal meeting to discuss why Battlefield 2042 has failed and what they're planning to do about it. This is going to be super juicy, so strap yourselves in, guys. Okay, let's start off with player numbers, shall we? That's always a cause for joy, right? We've been watching the player numbers on Steam dropping lower and lower with each passing day, but just recently they've hit two embarrassing new milestones. Firstly, Battlefield 2042 now has less active players on Steam than not only Battlefield 5, not only Battlefield 1, but now also Battlefield 4, an 8.5-year-old Battlefield game that most people already own on Origin. And secondly, its player count has dropped below 2,042 players at one point, making the game truly live up to its name. Honestly, I know I'm joking about it here, and that's mainly out of desperation at this point, but it's just sad to look at these graphs, man. This is the last month of player activity, and you can visibly see here every time we jump from one week to the next, from a Sunday to a Monday, the player count just takes a dive off a cliff. Now, on a slightly more positive note, you guys remember that petition that was trying to amass 50,000 signatures, right? Well, it just passed a whopping 200,000 today. According to its creator, originally, he stated that should the petition amass 50,000 signatures, some hotshot lawyer specializing in these kinds of lawsuits would take the case. And now I notice that his wording has been changed to, I will reach out to some of the best class action lawyers in the country to evaluate a case against EA and DICE. Not exactly what was promised there, but like I said in my video on the subject, I don't think anything will come of this petition anyway, but still, good God, is that a lot of people? I mean, that right there is double the all-time peak player count for Battlefield 2042 on Steam, so that should still send a big message to EA. Alright, let's move on to the juicy stuff here. Let's talk about that EA DICE meeting. Now, before we begin, I do want to state that this has not come from an official EA source. This is the newest blog from Tom Henderson. I'm sure you're all familiar with him at this point, and therefore you should take this with a pinch of salt. However, almost everything Tom has predicted, from the Battlefield 2042 leaks to insider stuff at EA and DICE, has mostly all been absolutely spot on, so I really have no reason to doubt this. So this blog post details a meeting held by EA executives. Tom calls it a town hall post-mortem. On this call, EA executives spent most of it discussing what went wrong with Battlefield 2042, as well as how the company sees the future of both 2042 and the Battlefield franchise going forward. In the call, Laura Miele, EA's chief studios officer, outlined several reasons why EA's higher-ups believed Battlefield 2042 failed. So one of the reasons was complications with the Frostbite engine being too old, and consequently DICE having to spend the better part of 18 months of development time practically creating a new engine from scratch. She clarified this by saying all new tech, it was basically a new engine. They went back, the Frostbite version they were on was so old they had to go back and update, so it was basically putting the game on a new engine. Of course, other than that, she mentioned the work-at-home environment due to the pandemic, saying, add up all of this new innovation, all of this ambition for the project, and then you add a global pandemic halfway into the project where the game teams had to work from home, we ended up with more new variables in development than we have ever experienced before. Honestly, I don't think we can blame the pandemic for this shoddy release at all. Yes, it's been a challenge for you, but so is it for everyone else. You know, we've all had to adapt. Let's not pretend like the Battlefield community didn't give DICE and EA the feedback it needed on this game. We were all shouting from the rooftops as early as the leaked playtest, way before the beta, that the game wasn't ready and it needed at least another year. Now, Miele claims that after the beta, EA received a lot of feedback concerning bugs on unpolished areas of the experience, which is true, but that there was also lots of positive feedback from players saying, and I quote, This feels like Battlefield. Battlefield is back. This is my Battlefield. Okay, Laura, I don't know if you've been seeing the same YouTube videos from long-time Battlefield content creators that I have, or been perusing the same subreddit as I have. Actually, scratch that. I know you guys don't touch Reddit anymore because it's 1% feedback, 99% vitriol, right? But I haven't come across anyone saying things like, this feels like Battlefield, or this is my Battlefield. I mean, come off it. It's the polar opposite of that, okay? Laura continues here saying, the early critical reception was good, however, things took a turn for the worse with the surprise release of Halo Infinite multiplayer. According to Miele, the comparison between both games was not favourable because Halo Infinite was a very polished title, whereas Battlefield 2042 contained bugs and wasn't as polished. Okay, first of all, that's EA's fault for not releasing a finished, polished product. You can't blame it on Halo Infinite for being a better game. I mean, hats off to them. And secondly, I'm pretty sure that most of your audience, the devoted Battlefield fans, haven't all fled off to play Halo Infinite. I mean, honestly, while I've played Halo Infinite and really enjoyed it myself, for a free-to-play title, it doesn't exactly have a massive player base either. Miele goes on here saying that negative player feedback was focused on three main areas: bugs and performance, game design and feature choices, specialists, and the game not aligning with player expectations. She then elaborated on just what the company has since learned in those areas and what actions will be taken to improve upon them. On bugs and performance, EA basically acknowledged that the company has historically had bug issues with DICE games at launch, and that the bug count for Battlefield 2042 fell into the range that they would have expected when compared to other launches, and was therefore believed that the issues would be manageable. She then quoted Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA's sentiments from the recent earnings call, saying, DICE historically is very good at adapting games in live service, connecting with the players, connecting with the community, and getting the game to the place that the players expect. She then acknowledged that player expectations have changed when it comes to live service games, and that it wasn't the right choice to remain anchored to the company's standards in comparison to previous DICE games. No. I'm sorry. We have never expected DICE games to launch in a terrible state. We perhaps were never very surprised given their history, but she's basically saying that they flat out knew that there were a shit ton of bugs with the game, and they just deemed that to be acceptable and figured they'd fix it after release. Now, on the topic of design and feature choices, the lack of scoreboard, VoIP, and the specialist systems were all mentioned briefly, but we already know changes are coming in all three of those departments, so she didn't really go into much detail there. In terms of player expectations, this is what Laura had to say. Clearly, we didn't go wide enough with different player segments, and we certainly didn't go deep enough with this game. So we did not bring players along with us, which is a big miss for the development cycle and process of this game. Now, Laura, finally, love, we agree on something. I'm 100% with you there. This game has nowhere near the depth of other Battlefield titles. So to sum up here, that mainly sounds like a bunch of excuses to me. DICE and EA cannot pretend that the writing wasn't on the wall. I saw plenty of the leaked playtest footage months before the beta released. I didn't get to play it, but I did have a very detailed write-up emailed to me by somebody that did. Then of course we all got to try the beta. It was very rough around the edges. We all reported that. It made us very apprehensive about the release, but DICE and EA reiterated and stressed to us that this build was, quote, months old and nothing like the actual release build. Hell, even in early access, we already had a lengthy write-up on Reddit of every single thing that was missing from Battlefield 2042 that had been part of previous Battlefield games. And I believe that is still the single most upvoted post on that subreddit. It's not like we didn't give them feedback every step of the way, right? Now, regardless of all of that, I do think that Battlefield 2042 is in better hands moving forward than it was. I do have some belief in Vince Zampella and Marcus Leto, in Christian Grass of Ripple Effect. I definitely think the three of them at least are solid additions to the team, so let's see what they've got. Let's see if they can turn this sinking ship around. Season 1 is going to be a very trying time. It's going to be make or break for Battlefield 2042, and let's just hope it's the former rather than the latter. With that said, I want to thank you guys for watching today. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. I know it was quite a long one. As always, discuss away down below. I want to know what you guys think about this, and subscribe to the channel because that makes me feel all warm and special inside and sort of validated as a human in a strange way. I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit of an ego boost. But yeah, do what you want with the subscribe and the like buttons. Have a good one, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.